In my earlier video, we built our APIs for CRUD operations using Prisma ORM and Next.js 14. If you recall, in Prisma, we created our Prisma schema file where we defined the model, generated the client, then did the migration, and then used Next.js API to create APIs for the CRUD operations. Now, I'd like to introduce you to a much more sophisticated and advanced backend API framework called Adonis JS. I will use Adonis JS version 6, which was only released in January 2024. I've been using Adonis JS version 5, which has been around for several years now. You can find out more details at AdonisJS.com. I have been using AdonisJS for a little over 3 years now. I like using AdonisJS because it comes built in with a...
To start cloning, first thing is to the folder on my local computer where I want to put all my code. Let's just have a look at my current folder structure. First folder I've got is the next person. So what I'll do is I'll use the git command to clone the repository on my local computer. In your case, feel free to fork my current repository and then clone that, and that way you're able to continue to modify and publish your code into the backend. But in this particular case, I'll clone this repo. Let's have a look. That did not take very long. Now I'll go into the folder. We'll see the folder is correctly created. So I'll go to person and I'll see all my code is here. I'll now start my build. When you first start this project, one of the things I want you to specifically pay attention to is there is a file called .env.example. The first thing you'll have to do to make this work is to create another file or copy this file called .env.example to .env.local or simply .env, and then change things specifically related to your database, change your database host, change the username, change the password, change the name of your database. These are the main things I want you to change. The rest, I think you can leave that as it is and it should work fine. You can also check out the README and I've got instructions that tells you what to do. After you make the change, env, next thing I want you to do is npm install. Once you've done the npm install, I want you to configure the database setup, which is the instruction that I provided through the environment variable. And then right after that, I want you to use a CLI. In this case, the command is node ace migration run. Node ace migration run, like the Prisma CLI, it will go and create the necessary database tables. If your .env local or .env database connections are set up correctly, then it will go and create all the necessary database tables. If you're reusing the same database, you can change the different database names. So that way you've got your Prisma databases running separately and you've got the Adonis database running separately. That way you can see the differences between how Prisma works and how Adonis works. Once you've done that, you'll be able to make the change. First up, we'll go into the app folder. In the app folder, what you'll see is the models. I've got two models in here. One is a user model and person.ts. The person.ts is the main code that I want you to focus on. Just as in Prisma, where you have a prisma.schema file where you define the actual model. In this case, you define the model based on an actual TypeScript file called person.ts. I've created an attribute called ID, first name, last name, and then the two default attributes called created at and updated at. These two are automatically created. And then I've created another file called controller called people_controller.ts. And in this particular controller, I've only implemented an index method. Index method will be mapped automatically to the get method for getting a list of all the people. And I'll show you in a second when I go through the routes and how to define that. Adonis works differently to the way Next.js works. In this particular case, I'm declaring a method called index. In the index, I ask person. If you look at person, you'll see the person, the base model. The base model is defined from Adonis. Adonis uses a ORM called Lucid. It's a pre-built ORM. You can think of Lucid in the same way as you can think of Prisma. The difference is that Adonis comes pre-packaged and integrated into Lucid, whereas in Next.js 14, we had to install an external third-party module called Prisma. Prisma is separate from Next.js. I'll next click on the start. In the start, you'll see I have defined my first route. My first route is a get route. I've specified /people. I could have put API /people. And when we go through /people, it will call the index method in the class called people controller. And people controller is in the file called people_controller.ts. And the rest should work just as fine. I've already created a .env file and I've put in all my database credentials in the .env file. And after that, type node ace serve --watch. Let's go and run this and see how that works. So I've just done a copy and paste, and we're going to start the server. And it's pretty fast. Now my server has started. For simplicity, instead of using Thunder Client or Postman, I'm just going to click on this. I've only just created a get method, so it should be fairly easy for us to test the get method. There you go. On the local host without any path, you'll see that I've got a hello world. Where does the hello world come from? You'll see in my route.ts. If it's / then it returns hello world. And if you go /people, and then it opens it up. So let's test this out on the browser. And you can see I've just done /people, and now it has showed me the records I have in my database. And if I click on pretty print, you'll see that I've got in my database first name, last name, and created at and updated date. That's null. That's maybe something I need to check my database setting and see why that was not updated.
Try AdonisJS version 6 on your own and use my code as a starting point. I would also encourage you to spend time reviewing the documentation related to Lucid ORM on the Adonis website, learn more about how to handle relationships like one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many relationships. Good luck and see you in the next video.